You're listening to the Sticks in the Six podcast. Here are your co-hosts, Andrew Forbes, Peter Baracchini,
and good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 146 of Sticks in the Six, brought to you by the fine folks at the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as DraftKings and the Indie Ale House. And boys, back to a threesome this week. Good to have you back, Alex. Happy to see that beautiful face, that lovely stash. We love it here on the pod. But before we get into all the fun and not so fun hockey talk this week, let's check in with the boys. Peter, how you doing this week, buddy?
Doing good, man. It's actually been a pretty rough week. First, like around my place, dishwasher goes, and then actual washer for cleaning clothes is gone. So got to be very careful about what happens around the house because we can't do dishes, can't do laundry, and that's pretty much it. Waiting for, parts to come in, but, parts are taking a long time to come in. So just the waiting game right now, catching up with the top prospects game right now. As you can see, I'm in a bit of a different area, doing a little bit of scouting as we podcast right now. So pretty good.
Living, breathing hockey in your skivvies with no clean clothes. I love it. Alex, buddy, how you doing?
Good, man. I'm happy to be back and complete the trifecta of the three phases of facial hair here. We got the beard, we got the clean shaven, and there was a mustache missing. So
team smooth.
Here I am.
Yeah, I went team smooth for today.
We're like the snap, crackle, and pop of facial hair. But things are good. I know it's been a long ass time since I've been on an episode. If I sit here and talk about exactly why shit was so insane for the past couple months, we'll probably spend the entire hour talking about it. So I think I'm just going to leave it at it was insane. It was just fucked. My life was fucked for a couple months, but it's a little less fucked now. I'm in a new place, as you can see. I've got a new setup. It's little cleaner than my last one. We're hanging out. I finally got my desk set up. I set that up last week after letting it sit there in the box for like a month after moving in here. It was it's been pretty wild couple of months, but here we are. So glad to be back.
I think we all mentioned it. Sometimes the podcast doesn't wait for life. So we've all had our little run-ins over the last couple of weeks. I was just telling Peter, going on week 6 of having this cough and sore throat and not sure what's going on. Told it's bronchitis, not sure if it's bronchitis. So still trying to figure that shit out. But did make it down to Buffalo for the Chicago Buffalo game. Was hoping at the time to see Bedard when I bought the tickets. Obviously that happened, but that was my dad's Christmas gift. So we did that this week, me, my brother, and my dad. So that was a nice little getaway. Watched some live hockey. Great seats, great people down there, and man, there's a brewery right up the road from the arena, and that was just a couple of nice
icing on the cake right there.
I was drinking the heavy stuff, but anyways, we got a lot to talk about this week. A lot of Leaf talk. Buyers, sellers. We're getting close to that deadline. We're seeing scouts in different press boxes around the league, but before we get into that, a few notes from around the league. Patrick Waugh is back, boys, and right now he's got a 100 win percentage. The New York Islanders, not your typical team that you think a Patrick Waugh type coach would come in and be there for, but Lou Lamoriello's got his guy. Patrick Waugh, he's a vocal coach. We've seen in the past. What are your thoughts on him coming back to the NHL? Alex?
Man, it's just it's not something I ever thought we'd see happen again. I mean, honestly, when I think about him, I think about just erratic coaching behavior. I think of who was it he was shaking the glass against? I think it was whoever was coaching Anaheim at the time. I want to say I can't remember who it was.
Is it Bob Hartley?
It may have not. I don't know if it was Bob Hartley because I remember seeing the video of Bob Hartley and John Tortorella going at it in the dressing room. I think that was a separate incident though.
That was the Calgary-Vancouver one.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
He was shaking the glass against somebody, though. I'm going to have to fact check that once I'm done my piece here. But, yeah, it's funny to see him back. And I don't know. I guess we'll see maybe if he can save the Islanders. I don't know if I'm really convinced that that's going to play out that way. But we'll see if he can make something out of that Lou Lamoriello roster with Pierre Engvall making 3.5.
That's right. That's right. Your thoughts on it, Peter?
Total Lou Lamoriello move. I mean, out of nowhere, not expected. I mean, the Isles were in a funk of their own, considering they beat the Maple Leafs in overtime. Really was interesting to see how it would play out because Lou Lamoriello going the route of Patrick Roy. I would have thought that the connection with the Devils, how it was always Brodeur versus Patrick Roy during that late '90s, early thousands, that duel right there. But you know what? He seems like a total Lou Lamoriello guy, and it was a Lou Lamoriello move. So I was about to get tongue-tied there for a second. Good thing I got past that. But yeah, bit of a shock, but a surprise. But you know what? It makes sense. He's the kind of guy that the Isles can probably feed off of.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was Bruce Boudreau.
I was going to say, I don't know how I forgot that. Bruce Boudreau, of course it was. Who else would it have been?
Yeah.
But and to make matters even funnier, he did that after his debut. He coached in his debut and he won, and that's how he celebrated. So,
and shortly after stepped away from the Colorado Avalanche, if we remember correctly. But All-Star weekend is coming up. It's almost upon us. First weekend of February, and of course the captains have been named. Not sure how you guys feel about the jerseys. You can talk about that quickly if you want. But Team Matthews, you got Austin Matthews, Justin Bieber, co-captain. Team McDavid, you got Connor McDavid with Will Arnett, obviously a big Leaf fan. Team McKinnon, drawing the ire of some of the single guys out there with Nathan McKinnon and Tate McRae. And then, of course, Team Hughes with Jack and Quinn, co-captaining with Michael Bublé. So any thoughts on those captains? Any thoughts on the jerseys?
Got a feel for Will Arnett. He wanted to captain, but didn't play out that way, unfortunately. I think if you were going to give anybody a captain, like a co-captain, but Justin Bieber to Austin Matthews, I think you were probably fooling yourself. So, I don't know. I'm pretty out of the loop when it comes to pop culture and like out of the loop when it comes to basically anything that young people talk about. So I'm probably not the guy to go to for a take like this, but I guess it'll be fun. We'll see what happens.
I just hope that Will Arnett would grab like one of those like plastic horse heads and just try to imitate because he is the voice of BoJack Horseman, just talk like him throughout the whole entire time. I mean, the co-captains is kind of fun. We already saw Michael Bublé trying to get on the ice with his Vancouver Giants jersey, maybe sneak in as a pick there. But the jerseys itself, I'm really very questionable. The blue and white are nice, but the red and yellow are just kind of meh. The design itself, it looks very cartoony. I mean, I'm a big cartoon fan, and I do not like those at all. It just seems very, I don't know. I know it's probably directed more towards the kids because it's Bieber's company and everything like that, but I don't know. Just not a fan of them. It just kind of seems like everything was kind of like rushed together, but that's just my 2 cents.
Everyone's saying they look more like a bag of Doritos. I see more like a box of Kraft dinner. Like it just reminds me of a box of Kraft dinner. I don't know if it's just the
all the colors coming together.
Yeah, I don't know. Like throw a little ketchup and some wieners in there, but anyways, it is what it is. It's the All-Star game. I think you guys know where I sit on the All-Star game and how I feel about it. But it should be fun to watch. It should be an interesting game and a lot of fun skills competition, and it'll be a fun weekend for whoever is there, and hopefully we'll be there. We'll see about that, but it should be fun, and I'm sure Will Arnett will find a way to throw a game against Matthews and his boy Justin Bieber. But boys, from fun to some of the not so fun stuff, big stories out of London. The London police are looking. Well, they're expecting 5 of the players from the 2018 Team Canada to surrender themselves to the London Police Services. We've seen a lot of speculation online as to who those 5 are. Obviously, we saw first Dylan Dubé step away for mental health purposes in Calgary. Nobody really questioned it. Then all of a sudden, Carter Hart stepping away for personal reasons. All of a sudden, we see McLeod and Foote weren't at practice for the Devils. They obviously have just recently stepped away as well for personal reasons, indefinite leave for all of 4 guys. And then, of course, Alex Formanton with his Swiss team stepping away so that he can come back to Canada for personal reasons. Peter, let's throw it to you first. Your take on this whole situation. It's a lot of information to take in. If you're not following Rick Westhead right now, you should be. This guy's all over everything. Anything to do with scandal in sports, this guy's got it. And yeah, I mean, what's your take, Peter?
Yeah, even the report earlier today that was broken by, I believe it was Robin Doolittle from the Globe and Mail, which is where where we first saw it. I mean, Elliot Friedman quoted it, talking about like how they want the players to surrender, and it's just like everything started to fall into place too. And then you immediately saw what happened with Formanton, McLeod, and Foote as well. And it's, again, we don't want to jump to conclusions. We don't want to speculate, but it just seems like everything's starting to fall into place. And after 2 years of this investigation, or a year and a half and 2 years of this investigation, it seems like we may be getting more answers sooner rather than later, or like everything getting put off. And I think it's big. It's big because whoever was involved with this, whoever the 5 players actually are, need to be held accountable for their actions. And throughout, I'm pretty sure we saw the same comments online as well, that this is not about your favorite team. This is not about your favorite player. This is about, them committing a crime and being held accountable for that. Put rivalries, put everything aside, put the fact that, he was my favorite player growing up, whatever, I liked him in junior. That's all meaningless right now. That really is. And I really feel bad, or my heart is going out to the victim right now in all of this, because she's the one who endured all of this. And right now things go as according to plan. I think I read that maybe she is willing to testify in court as well, if what I read was correct. If everything does go through, which is very big, because throughout this whole entire ordeal, she's been suffering
faceless.
Through it all.
She's been faceless.
Yeah. She's been suffering through it all, more so than the players. And if you're trying to say, what, we got to feel for the NHL players too, I don't feel any sorrow for them whatsoever, because they knew what they were doing. You can't feel sorry for that.
Alex, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that it took this long, and it's an even bigger shame that there's the belief that these players, whoever they end up being, if it ends up being the players that have been speculated on, have been making money this entire time and playing and still being able to live a normal life while this process is dragged out. Mm-hmm. But it's good that we're finally coming to a conclusion, it seems, and hopefully we can take this and hopefully use it as an example to never let it happen again. I mean, I like you said, Peter, the victim, where she stands, is the number one priority here. I think that's the number one thing that matters more than anything else. And the one thing I will add as well is I really hope that if it's kind of a morbid thing to hope for, but if Dubé does end up being one of the players involved, I really hope there's an explanation coming from the Flames for framing that under mental health. That's like for Carter Hart, personal reasons, they kept it vague. If he ends up being guilty of it, then it is what it is. The Flyers basically said or didn't say what they could. But I mean, to say that he's under he's under the care of professionals and he's looking after his mental health, like it takes away from, and on a day like today, especially, it takes away from the whole point of discussing mental health. It's it would be very disingenuous to people who have actually gone through battles like that to use that as an excuse to direct attention away from something like that. But again, that's all stuff that you speculate on, and I don't want to speculate on this any more than we already have. So I'm going to leave my thoughts there. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of where I stand on that, and I really hope that justice comes forward for the victim.
And it stays like today, where this is why hockey culture needs a massive shift and a massive change in mentality, because as we've seen throughout the whole entire 2 years, and even with the news of like other events in other sports, or not events, but other, other people stepping forward in other events to combat this, it shows that people have had enough. And this is why the culture needs to change, because it's just absolutely sickening to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump off of what Alex said too, and just say, like, I mean, it's tougher to take from an organization who saw a guy like Oliver Kylington, who was, had stepped away from the game for mental health reasons as well, and it brings into the question, like, kind of the legitimacy of them as an organization. But again, speculation aside, I think you guys know where I stand on this. I think I was pretty vocal way back when they were, kind of reopening this investigation. But I'm curious to get your take on, all the heat obviously is going to be on the players at this point, and rightfully so. But at what point does it come back and you take the London Police Service and you kind of, there's got to be a little bit of heat on them as well for not kind of following through in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because they could. I don't want to say that they could only go based on what was when it brought to them, when not the accusations, but this whole entire process was brought towards them. I'm not like a criminologist, or like I'm not into the law or anything like that. I don't want to get too much into that, but I think they wanted to take the necessary steps to make sure they got everything right, all the facts, everything like that, to make sure that they had everything to go through with this. I do agree that it probably took a little bit longer than expected because all the info was out. And even so, they already have like a news conference set for the 5th, and that seems like a little bit too long. Why would you hold that off when all this news is coming out? Maybe if you wanted to wait maybe 2 or 3 days to have those players come into custody, fine. But another week seems like a little bit long and drawn out process that it already is.
My understanding of that is that so because they are not a danger to society under their standard, they have a week to surrender themselves to the police service.
Fair.
That gives them an opportunity to surrender themselves. And then obviously the investigation will kind of close out at that point once they speak to each of the members of the team that are coming in. And then I'm sure that's why they put it off to February 5th. But interesting timing as well. Obviously, we're talking about the All-Star game being the first weekend of February. All of a sudden, right after All-Star weekend, you're going to have this press conference, and the hockey world's focus, the sporting world's focus, is all of a sudden going to be back on this and shifted back to it. Kind of like today when all this news was coming out and all of a sudden there was a release that they're looking to put a team in Salt Lake City and start the process of expansion. I mean, timing is everything. And I don't believe that it was a
Not
coincidence.
the right time.
I believe that there was some sort of conversation had that said, we got to kind of shift the focus once again. And I mean, it's just, it seems like no matter how many steps we try to take in the right direction when it comes to hockey culture, sport culture, we continually take steps back. And this is just another example of it. I will say this, you guys know how I felt when this investigation opened. It is, for me, close to home being in London. So I was fairly vocal about particular players. I did have some people come to me and say, you can't be saying that. And I don't want to kind of further the speculation, but I think everything is starting to settle in. And I wouldn't mind those same people coming back and I can kind of have an aha moment when it's all said and done, because, I don't just throw those things out lightly. So that being said, I do hope that the due process is done well. I hope that it's finally closed and those involved can find a way to hopefully take steps in moving on in their respective lives. And I hope that the victim of what happened is able to kind of close the door and find a way forward in terms of getting a little bit of closure, knowing that the people that did her wrong are receiving proper justice. But again, this is an unfolding story. I'm sure we'll get more information as we go. I will say this: if you look at any of the comments made by Danny Briere today, obviously with the Flyers organization, he did basically kind of put it out there that Carter Hart is involved when he said that we've been directed by the NHL to forward any questions regarding the investigation to them and not comment on it. So to me, that's kind of you're almost outing him right there. But anyways, we'll sit back, we'll wait. Rick Westhead's going to have all the facts. Maybe we'll see if I can even get into that February 5th presser and see if we can get some more information. But that being said, another dark moment for hockey culture and for all those involved, Hockey Canada as well, even though they have tried to reform, where they're at, but definitely not something that we want to consistently talk about. Hopefully we can close the door on this one fairly soon. That said, guys, Leafs game tonight. What better way to get this going than talk a little bit of betting? The Leafs obviously are going to be kicking off. Puck drop already kind of happened. Did it not? 7:00, I believe they're starting.
Yes.
We're 11 minutes left in the first period.
So there you go. We're right in the midst of it.
Outplayed as usual.
Well, I mean that's kind of expected. It's the Winnipeg Jets. This is their Stanley Cup. So, but with that, boys, quick word from the DraftKings Sportsbook. We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Tonight's line on the Leafs right now have them at -140. Have the over at 5.5. So not a bad one to take with 11 minutes left in the first, as you mentioned. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. Well, boys, our Leafs, a little bit of inconsistency has been the story of the entire season, especially as of late. They've had leads. They've given them up. Goaltending's been a question mark. Sammy seems to be kind of turning it around, but I'm not too quick to jump the gun there. Let's talk about the Leafs blowing leads. Alex, what's your take on this? Can they figure this out? Can they fix it in this home stretch?
This is a scheduled conversation every year. Sometimes it happens in November. Sometimes it happens in January. Sometimes it's in March. But at some point every year, there's a conversation about the Leafs blowing leads. So if you want my take, you can go back to the you can find whatever episode it was in, go back and play it and again. And I guarantee you nothing's changed. No. Honestly, it's weird because early on in the season with their struggles, the one thing about them I remember noting was that they weren't blowing leads. Like they were losing games in frustrating fashion. They were getting shelled early on, but like of all the ways that they were losing games, like they weren't blowing leads, which for a while seemed like, okay, well, at least that's somewhat of a positive. They figured out how to, stay in games till the end and come back and get themselves out of deficits. But I mean, it's clearly not a conversation point anymore because the past couple of weeks have shown that they absolutely still have the ability to blow leads. So, I mean, I don't really know what there is to say about it, to be honest. I mean, you hope that they find a way to figure it out at some point. You would hope that at the deadline, there's some sort of upgrade coming. I know that there's been talk, which we'll get to later, about not really having that much of an initiative to be huge buyers at the deadline like they were last year. But you would hope that at bare minimum, they trade for someone to take some of the weight off of Gio and, eventually hope that one of their goaltenders, regardless if it's Samsonov out of nowhere, if it's Joseph Wall off the IR, stays strong enough that they can get themselves out of this rut, because right now it's been rough the past couple bits. The last little bit is what I meant to say.
It's been
That's
rough.
where we're going to
past
end that
couple bits.
conversation.
Yeah. Peter, your thoughts on how the Leafs can hopefully fix this down the stretch? Is it something that is going to plague them the remainder of the season, or are we talking about a team that can turn it around?
I always say that it's always the simple mistakes that are always causing them to lose leads. I mean, it's always a clearing tech. It's always a poor positioning. It's always, losing track of who your assignment is. That's always how they've lost during that stretch of games when they lost 4 in a row before they won against, Seattle and everything like that. To me, it's like they've made these same mistakes in the past. And how many times can they say they've learned their lesson when really they have not learned their lesson? I mean, this is a completely different team right now. They wanted to go more offense with the players and the personnel that they added in the offseason, subtracting the defensive-minded players that they had. And it's really showing right now how they're not as great defensively showing right now. They were great at the beginning of the season. One of the better teams in, keeping the puck out of their net. But then, the inconsistency started happening with Sammy. Players weren't clearing the puck out very well. I'm seeing that right now in this game during intermission in between the top prospects game. The way they're managing the puck right now is not how they've managed the puck in the past. And that is a big problem. It's not going to get you far in the playoffs. It's not going to probably get you far during the stretch because they're just hanging on to a wild card spot right now, or like one of the 2 wild card spots. But those 4 losses could have been the difference maker in the standings, where instead of losing 8 to 10 points, you could have gained 8 to 10 points had you played better, had you shut it down and not lose focus of what was going on. Because that to me is a problem. And if they can't figure that out now, already halfway through the season, I don't know if they ever will during the rest of the season.
So, I mean, that brings me to my next question then. Sheldon Keefe, there's been a lot of speculation of whether the Leafs should hold on to him, whether he should be fired. I think numbers speak volumes when you're talking about coaching. He does seem to have been a little bit frustrated recently with the team's play, and it, as such, has kind of commented in the media on some of the players, believing that they're maybe he doesn't know who to trust 42 games in. Let's say that. Is he losing the team? Is it something that, maybe doesn't lie with him, or are we on the verge of seeing Sheldon Keefe fired in Toronto, Peter?
That's a tough question because, I've talked about this with like friends before, and it's like, if you make a coaching change right now at the halfway point during the season, is that really going to change much? I mean, you already saw the Islanders do it, but when I see the Islanders play, I at least see a competitive team. I see at least a team that gives it its all every single time. You don't see that consistently with the Maple Leafs. And maybe a fresh voice behind the bench would change everything. I don't know if you make Guy Boucher the interim coach for the time being, or let's say you bring in Gerard Gallant. Who knows who's available? But I don't know if it's going to make a major difference right now, given how there's already question marks surrounding the roster. Talk about, if you're not going all in, you might as well just make do with what you have right now. So if you're Sheldon Keefe right now, you're not going to get a whole lot of new players or new personnel at your disposal. You just got to make do with what you have. But if they keep losing the way that they're doing right now, I think maybe a coaching change, unfortunately, is going to be the way to go, to say, hey, you know what? It's always it should always fall on the players in this situation, because the way that they've been playing have been, I'm going to put it, it's been awful. But it's going to be unfortunate that Sheldon Keefe may get the axe as a result of it. But you don't see a whole lot of even in his press conferences too, he's very calm when he's trying to pinpoint or point out flaws of the game. He needs to have a John Tortorella moment and just lay into his team, because that kind of soft mentality is not going to go far. He's got to tell this team right now, if this is how you're going to play, then just mail it in right now. If you actually want to fight and give it your all, then go out there and prove it to me.
Alex, I'm going to throw some numbers at you real quick here. So Sheldon Keefe, this season has been his lowest point percentage thus far as a head coach in the NHL. He started 5 years ago, 2019-20, with a 628 point percentage. His highest 2021-22 was 701 Right now, he's sitting at 600 when it comes to his point percentage. The team is 23, 14, and 8. Is now the time to put a guy like this on the hot seat and call for his head in Toronto?
No, I don't think it is. And let me start by saying that I don't necessarily disagree with the premise of firing Sheldon Keefe. Like, just like you can say about Kyle Dubas right now, like you can make all the excuses for them you want. You can defend their decisions and moments and, point at his regular season coaching record, etc. But Sheldon Keefe, since he began coaching the Leafs, I think one series win in 5 or 6, like, at some point, the results just start to speak for themselves. So I'm not necessarily against firing Sheldon Keefe. At the same time, I'm not against keeping him as head coach, because I don't think that firing a coach is going to be the number one thing. But I also don't think he's been, this messiah that we need to keep and protect at all costs. Like I think that we're at a point now where you can justify it if they let the head coach go. That being said, I don't see a world where if the Leafs do fire Keefe mid-season, that they go out and they hire someone like Craig Berube or Gerard Gallant or one of these guys that's available on the market right now. If the things were to get so bad that the Leafs were to fire Sheldon Keefe, I think that they'd probably just pivot to Guy Boucher. And I do not think that's worth it whatsoever, not even as an interim, because all of a sudden you're asking the Leafs to completely switch their transition. And you're completely asking them to transition their play style to
different coach.
This well, not necessarily even just a different coach, just it's a different coach who plays a notoriously different system when he's got a head coach, right? Like, this guy is notorious for having a slow trap defensive game. And to ask the Leafs from playing this kind of freestyle offense where they can be creative and make plays and kind of draw things up themselves, to go from that to being a dump and chase trap team mid-season, at that point, you're asking the Leafs to miss the playoffs. I mean, with a completely different talent scale, it would essentially be a repeat of Peter Horachek taking over for Randy Carlyle. I just don't see a world where that happens. So, not that I don't see a world where that happens. I don't see a world where that works out for the Leafs. So, in the offseason, maybe you revisit. You see what happens with John Cooper down in Tampa Bay. I'm sure there's some other head coaches out there you wait and hear a verdict on before you go and make any moves. But I don't think I don't think right now is the time to make a head coaching move. I just don't see a move being made from outside the organization. And don't say Joel Quenneville. It's not happening.
Oh, God. He'll be at the bottom of my list if that was the case.
Well, to start, Joel Quenneville has not been reinstated yet by the NHL. So that's number one off
Silver
the list.
lining.
But I have to agree with you, Alex. I think right now is not the time to fire Keefe. I don't think the options right now are something that you want to be looking at. I think if they do transition to somebody like Guy Boucher, he's notorious, like you said, for playing that trap. I think we can all go back to that one embarrassing moment with him as a head coach, where was it Philly and Tampa Bay?
It was against Torts as well.
Yeah. So I mean, it just. Those moments, I think, they do follow you around as a head coach. I don't think Guy Boucher's done enough in his career to earn that kind of, that relief position of Sheldon Keefe. But at the same time, the Leafs aren't built to be a trap team at all, period. Mm-hmm. Case in point, they are not a trap team. They are an offensive juggernaut up front. It's a couple spots within the lineup that they need to fix. And maybe Sheldon Keefe is wearing thin on them. That is a possibility. Let's be honest. He's been behind that bench for close to 5 seasons now. That is the shelf life for the majority of professional sports coaches. Name the greats, and sure, they're around for a long time. Greg Popovich comes to mind with the Spurs. Trotz comes to mind with Nashville. But even then, Nashville never got it done. So it does, the greats are around for a long time. The ones that maybe have a different way, a different style of coaching, they have a shelf life. They have an expiry date. And I'm starting to see, and I'm starting to think that maybe Sheldon Keefe is on his way out in Toronto. I don't know if it's an in-season move. I don't know if it's something that you do in season, but you have to imagine that Brad Treliving, along with looking at options to better the roster, is also looking at head coach Sheldon Keefe and saying, maybe it's time to go a different route. I don't see why that wouldn't be in consideration. But at the same time, there have been some turnarounds, some bright spots within the Leafs organization. I think we have to talk about Samsonov when it comes to turnarounds. His most recent appearance, he looked to be a little bit more sure of himself, a little bit more comfortable in the net. Alex, what are your thoughts on Ilya Samsonov? Is he going to kind of find that groove from last season, or are we just playing with fire here?
Look, man, I wrote an article a couple months ago. Not a couple months ago. That's a lie. It was about a month ago, talking about how Ilya Samsonov at this point probably didn't have much of a path back to Toronto because, he was at the absolute lowest point of his confidence. Martin Jones was on a heater. And at that point, the logic is if Martin Jones keeps playing like this and Samsonov comes back and the Leafs try to waive Jones again, he's not making it through waivers the second time. They lose him. And then all of a sudden you're relying on Samsonov, who at that point, what if he doesn't come back and he's still playing as bad as he was early on in the season, right? So that was kind of the logic of that article at the time. But if Ilya Samsonov wants to come and prove everybody wrong and play the way he did last year, I will be the number one fan. I will be here for it because people forget that Ilya Samsonov has his flaws, obviously. People know that. But no matter which way you slice it, he was also the guy in net when the Leafs advanced past the first round for the first time in 19 years. Like, this guy's got the ability. You see the potential when he has a good game. It's so mental. And he has all the issues that he's had have largely been mental. So if this reset worked, and there was an article that came out, great article. Talking about how Ilya Samsonov's dad or his parents came to Toronto when they talked. And if it's something as simple as a conversation with your parents that brings you back, I'm more than willing to give this guy another chance, because I think, like we've said this on this podcast before, the Leafs are at their best if Joseph Woll and Ilya Samsonov are both thriving. In this case, Martin Jones. So I hope that Samsonov has what it takes to come back. And I mean, just in this Jets game, he's looking good again. So you hope this reset worked for him. And I'm more than willing to have him prove me wrong and prove everybody else wrong if that's the way it's going to play out. So hoping for the best, but I do still think there's a little bit of risk here.
Peter, where are you sitting right now on the Leafs goaltending and Ilya Samsonov?
He needed that win. He needed that massive win against the Seattle Kraken. That was absolutely huge for him to get his confidence back. And sometimes all it takes is one game. And as Alex mentioned, he's already off to a hot start right now, where he's basically the best player right now for the Maple Leafs, because they're getting absolutely hemmed in their own zone, and he's the one giving them a fighting chance. But I just want to go back to a quote. I believe it was just yesterday or the day before, where Mark Masters tweeted this about Samsonov. I'm so motivated. I want to play every day. I want to stop the puck hard as you can. And just first, I want to enjoy. Last couple months, I forgot how to enjoy to play. I just want to enjoy every moment. That was kind of like the Ilya Samsonov that we were missing, you could tell he wasn't having fun losing. Last year, he was having fun. When he's on top of his game and he's having fun, he was one of the best goalies in the league. He got away from that, and you saw that with his play. That reset really did help him out. And even the game against the Detroit Red Wings, aside from that, one goal where maybe he was trying to make that poke check or whatever, I didn't like it. But you know what? He held his own in that game against the Red Wings, where the Maple Leafs had a chance to bury the team that came in 2 hours before the game, and they didn't. It seems like he's slowly starting to find his groove back right now, and that's what you want to see. I've mentioned what the Maple Leafs need to do for their goaltending situation. I wrote about it a few times as well. Because Jones is starting to struggle right now. You needed Ilya Samsonov to try and give you that, not average, but average to above average goaltending in order to win and be successful, to make this decision a little bit tougher. Who are you going to send down when Joseph Woll comes back? Looking like it's probably going to be Jones right now, because Ilya Samsonov is becoming the hotter of the two goalies right now. And this is what you wanted to see. This is the Samsonov that, put the team on his back in the playoffs, and they were getting shelled in the first round, and he came up with big time saves. That triple pad save against the Kraken. I mean, that was basically one of those big moment saves that says, you know what, this guy is back right now. And hopefully he can continue that, because the signs are there. If he's able to have that momentum, it's going to be great for him. But you know what? The team also needs to help him out and, play a little bit better and start taking advantage of situations like Sheldon Key said, where if you're in a tight game, you got to find that next goal to help everyone else out, including Samsonov.
Yeah, you heard earlier this week, I think it was Bertuzzi say, I just need one of those garbage goals to get going. And I do really believe that goaltending is very similar. I mean, you need that one win. You need that big save that kind of gets your confidence, kind of, lights a fire under your ass a little bit and says, I can still do this. And I mean, look at Jack Campbell right now. I believe in his last 4 showings in the AHL for Edmonton's affiliate, he's 4-0 with like a 1 point something goals against. Like he's lighting it up, and it's all about confidence, about finding that fire that you had before, that love for the game, the fun that you were having the conversation with your parents if that's what you need, and kind of getting a mind reset. And I think goaltending is such a mental game, man. It's like it's probably one of the more mental games, or one of the more mental positions in the game. And I think he needed the game. He needed that win. His numbers are starting to climb. 866 save percentage, still not great, but it's better. 369 goals against, not great, but it's better. And that's kind of what you want to see. You want to see somebody who can improve on what he already has. If you can get him going even at half of what he was last season, and Joseph Woll comes back and plays to the level that we know Joseph Woll can from the start of the season, this is a decent tandem, and this is an underrated tandem, and this is a team that can go on a run. They got that four game losing streak out of the way. They're starting to play a little bit better. Obviously, I haven't seen what's going on so far in the first period, so I haven't been able to comment on that. But this is a team that needs to find that groove. There was a lot of changes in the offseason, and we're not going to sit here 50 games in and say, well, they still need to find chemistry. No, I mean, they've had the time to do that, but those changes, people are in a new city, people are in a new setting. They need to figure it out. Bertuzzi, obviously, we know now that his wife or girlfriend was pregnant at the time, and they're awaiting the arrival of their child. So I mean, that can weigh on you as well. So I mean, there's a lot going on. We forget about the outside aspect of the game sometimes and focus so much on the results, because it's a results driven league, and the Leafs have not had results in a long time. But they need to get it going, because if they don't right now, they're looking at taking on possibly the Florida Panthers in the first round. And I'll tell you right now, with Sam Reinhart, who's now at 35 goals this season, it's not going to be a pretty series. We're going to be sitting here again in the offseason talking about the same damn shit that we talk about every goddamn offseason. I'm not ready for it. So I do hope Samsonov can get going. I do hope that, Woll can come back and be the goaltender that they are. And I hope that they can make the necessary moves heading into the deadline to get to where they need to be. So with that, there's potential that they might not be buyers. And that's something that Elliot Friedman's talking about on 32 Thoughts. Alex, your thoughts on the Leafs as buyers or sellers at the deadline? What are we looking at? Are we going to see a team where they, make some big moves, or is Brad Treliving going to kind of sit pat and go along with what he's got?
Well, I think that the whole concept of them being buyers is kind of blown out of proportion because of what they did last year. Like, I feel like a lot of people associate being buyers as doing what they did last year and trading for 6 new players and shelling out multiple first round picks and bringing in guys who are rentals, like Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Shen and Nola Chari and players like that. I don't think that the Leafs should do that this year, but I do think that there are some places that they can upgrade, and I absolutely don't think that they should be selling off pieces. I don't care what you say about how this team hasn't proven they're good enough yet, or the division's too good, they're going to lose their spot. Like, at no point after the Leafs sign Matthews and Nylander long term are you going to make the argument that they should sell with a straight face. I'm sorry, I don't see them doing that. So I think that with where they're at right now, another bottom 6 forward would be nice, because right now the bottom 6 doesn't really have an identity. They kind of have a scoring third line that plays limited minutes because they get shelled defensively. And then they've got a fourth line that Keefe kind of tries to use as the checking line sometimes, and it just doesn't work. So Their bottom six needs an identity. I think they could use a bottom six forward. Like I said earlier, they need a defenseman to take some weight off of Gio. Ideally, someone to play alongside Luke Shen so you can drop Brody in the lineup and he doesn't have to face top pairs anymore because he's just been off all year. There's been something off about Brody. We all know the reasoning behind that. He's had some personal reasons as well as just general aging and things like that. So I think that if you add someone on defense and add someone up front, I think that could constitute a successful deadline, but it doesn't have to be one that they did last year.
Peter, your thoughts on the Friedman comments? Buyers, sellers, what are we talking about when we talk to Maple Leafs?
Yeah, there's absolutely no way they should be buyers. And, in that same episode, Jeff Merrick basically said, GMs have that adage where they basically say, is your on-ice play going to dictate whether we are going to be buyers or sellers? Nothing with their play, even though that they had a great game against the Kraken, nothing they're getting shelled against the Jets right now. Nothing suggests otherwise that this is a year to buy in and move prospects and picks and everything like that. I'd hang on to that. This is definitely not the year. If you do, you're working out to form out a depth and an identity for the next season. If you're getting, let's say, like Alex said, bottom six help, bottom three defender, that could be your 4 to 6 guy kind of thing. Are you going to look at a price to try and bring in Chris Tanev? If you are for sure going to try and address the defense, maybe that's the only reason. If you're trying to rebuild the blue line and get a top 4 defender, and if maybe Tanev is going to sign in the offseason, that's a possibility. If you know for sure you're going to get him and he's going to resign, then why not make that move or just wait until the offseason to sign him and keep your assets as well? I think making smaller moves is going to be the better direction for them. Anything major in a year where they think that they have a chance at beating a Florida Panthers-like team, I'm predicting a 5-game series again. I'd be surprised if they even win one, even if they were to go up against Tampa Bay, Boston, even if they're in the wild card and they go over to the Metro. I think it's going to be over before it's even said and done. So, hold on and everything. Make sure you come back with a better, roster constructed, because now you're going to miss certain pieces. You're going to have more money to work with, and the cap is going up as well, so that's a plus. So don't make a hasty reaction or move right now unless for sure it's going to benefit the team. But I think just depth moves is the way to go at this point.
So looking more and more like a Sheldon Keefe firing at some point near the end of the season.
Unfortunately.
Boys, there has been some bright spots for the Leafs. Austin Matthews, 38 goals. This guy is well on his way to a 70-goal season. Do we see 70 this year, or are we sitting tight at 65? Peter, what are your thoughts?
I mean, if he keeps scoring at the pace that he is, there's no reason to suggest that. But we thought maybe he was going to hit 65 the year where he got 60, and it was just at 60. So you know what? It's definitely within reach. It's not impossible. It's definitely possible. It's just a matter of are they expecting him to go out and score a goal per game? And because he's been carrying this team on his back throughout the whole entire season, like he's been the difference maker. And there have been times where he's been the lone bright spot and nobody else has shown up. So it's going to be difficult for him if he's going to carry this team. But it all depends on how everyone else is going to play too, because they need to help him out. He can't just he can, but it's going to get to a point where he's going to tire himself out, and then you're going to have no offense whatsoever, I think. So definitely possible. If not, at least 65 is definitely within range.
Alex, I'm going to throw a scenario at you. There's a very good chance that Austin Matthews wins the Rocket Richard this year. He's sitting at 38 goals. Let's say 5 games left in the season. You're in a playoff spot. You've locked in your first round opponent. You've got 65 goals. You're Austin Matthews. You got 5 games left. Are you playing, or are you sitting out a couple of those games?
I'm playing him, and I'm irresponsible for it, but I'm playing him.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I want to see the guy get 70 goals, man. I remember there was a time when the Leafs' leading scorer was Phil Kessel, who had 55 points. Not even goals, points. we're looking at a Leafs player who can score 70 goals. Give him that opportunity all day, every day. Leafs also have a great record without Matthews, so if he does get hurt, I think they'll be fine.
Can you believe that there was conversation this season about possibly bringing Phil Kessel back as a depth player?
My God, that would have been beautiful.
Anyways, boys, anything else you wanted to add before we close it out for the week? It's been a fun episode having all three of us back.
Yeah, no, definitely great to be back with the three musketeers here. Really great to be back in the saddle with you boys. Nothing on my end, just a lot of, obviously with the prospects game, got a standout piece coming out, as well as something about the players, that the Maple Leafs are relying on in the depth situation. So like players like Robertson, Nyes, and Pontus Holberg, who have really stepped up their play lately. So that's it on my end.
Alex, anything from you, buddy?
Nothing from me. Go Leafs, go.
There you go. Anyways, folks, as always, check us out on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. We're getting closer and closer to that century mark. Check us out on Twitter. You can follow all three of us there, as well as the podcast at Sticks in the Six. Make sure you go to the sports podcast group and vote for us as the best hockey podcast. We're getting very close to the tail end of fan voting. We'd appreciate your vote. We'll post that link later on our Twitter page as well. Check us out on all of our other socials. As always, make sure you check out the DraftKings. Use THPN, code THPN. Check out all the shows at the Hockey Podcast Network as well. Great network. And make sure if you're looking for tickets to anything, concerts, games, you name it, use SeatGeek and use code Sticks in the Six, as well as No Name Hockey. If you're looking for your own custom stick, custom curve, custom colors, you got it. Check out the show description as well. We can help you out with that at No Name Hockey Limited. Until next time, boys, until next week, episode 146 in the books. Let's go Leafs.